Our reading this morning is from Emergent Strategy by Adrienne Marie Brown, and it's titled, Humans' Core Function is Love. Adrienne Marie Brown is a fantastic writer, women's rights activist, and Black feminist based in Detroit. When we are engaged in acts of love, we humans are at our best and most resilient. The love in romance that makes us want to be better people, the love of children that makes us want to change our whole lives to meet their needs, the love of family that makes us drop everything to take care of them, the love of community that makes us work tirelessly with broken hearts. Perhaps humans' core function is love. Love leads us to observe in a much deeper way than any other emotion. If love were the central practice of a new generation of organizers and spiritual leaders, it would have a massive impact. If the goal was to increase love rather than winning or dominating a constant opponent, I think we would actually imagine liberation from constant oppression. We would suddenly be seeing everything we do, everyone we meet, not through the tactical eyes of war, but through the eyes of love. We would see that there's no such thing as a blank canvas, an empty land, or a new idea. But everywhere there is complex, ancient, fertile ground full of potential. We would understand that the strength of our movement is in the strength of our relationships, which could only be measured by their depth. Scaling up would mean going deeper, being more vulnerable, more empathetic. I'm impressed by whoever could whistle in a mask. You have an uncommon skill. The opening line of the covenant we recited earlier states, "Love is the spirit of our people." What a powerful statement. What a intense draw. Yet I think the ancient Greeks would say it doesn't quite sound precise enough to them. And you might even agree when you think about it. What does love is the spirit of our people truly mean? And how do we show it? And today, I'm going to draw upon ancient Greek to help us unpack what it means to love. Because we have one word for love, or the word that we use when we translate ancient Greek, we use the word love to put in or translate for 7 of their words. They had 7 distinct forms of love, just like I have one word for snow, but I hear in Alaska they have 27. So today I'm going to take you through each of the 7 forms of Greek love. And I want you to think about them and pay attention specifically to what forms of love do you want to grow or foster in your life in 2022? And so it might be a great time actually to take out a pen or pencil and some paper to just jot down some notes so you can again reflect on what these messages are for your own life. Now, in ancient Greek culture, they loved hierarchies. They were always putting things in tiers. Some are higher and some are lesser than, and I just don't find that helpful. And I want you, when you hear about these, not to think about them as growing into a more necessary or deeper or a higher level of spiritual love, but rather think about them as like almost as nesting bowls or nesting dolls. Some love being more at the core center, and other forms and practices of love helping push love outward in our lives. The first love that I want to talk about is philatia. Philatia, which is self love. Now, Aristotle pointed out self-love can take two different forms. One is an unhealthy form of narcissism, self-obsession, really tracking one person's level of fame or fortune. You know, what are our poll numbers, or how many likes do we get on a Facebook post or tweets, or what is our salary in comparison to last year, or where are we on the pop charts? But Philotia also has a healthy version that enhances our wider ability to love and to be loved. Because we learn to share joy and empathy from owning our own experiences. We draw on what it means to be connected, to love, to be helped, to receive empathy. We use that kind and form of self-awareness to understand how to practice love towards others. In Philotia, we also learn to accept love. For as the ancient Jewish philosopher said, Hillel, if we are not for ourselves, then who will be for us? So Philotia is at the heart of one's desire for personal liberation. Now, the next form I'm really excited to talk about, which is Ludus, playful love, which I associate with a type of delightful connection. Now, I remember when I was at Union Theological Seminary, it was a very artistic community. And there were a group of friends of mine, and they were all musicians, and they would make music and jam together. And you can see this palpable love or connection. That's Ludus. Ludus is what comes when you're enjoying this dance together and moving as one. I think of Ludus as that loving glance back at great summer camps. Or I know I feel it when I finally get a chance to playfully be competitive at board games. It brings me such delight. I think it's the bond of sports teams when perhaps they finally scored a goal against a better team. And of course, it's that playful flirtation, that kind of excitement and intoxication. Now, in our society, Ludus, playful love does not have a good reputation. And yet, Ludus love is so important for our well-being. And I actually think that this light, delight connection in other human beings has been one of the great lost loves in the pandemic. We just don't gather to be with each other lightly anymore. And so I hope for more board games in the year ahead. Storge is unconditional familial love. This is the love that one has for one's family, the love that protects, that provides, the one that sacrifices. By the way, it's all parents who worked and homeschooled or worked and virtual schooled, all this during this pandemic. I saw this kind of storge love. I watched Shark Tank, and there was this wonderful young, recent college graduate who invented some great company that the sharks, the investors, were interested in. But they always like to find out more about who this person is. And they said, "Tell us your story." And she was studying to go into public health, but she said that she came to America. She came from a poor Vietnamese village, and her parents gathered their entire life savings and borrowed money from everyone they know and mortgaged their house to send her to America. And that money was able to buy them a one-way plane ticket and one semester's worth of college tuition. And she had to make the best of it. And she graduated with honors and started this company, but it was that all in for one's child. Storge love. I have this friend, Jessica. She's a minister, and she's a little bit older than me, and um, she's not married, and she'd been holding out for the one to create a family with, and it just wasn't happening. And so she tried to have a baby on her own, and tried and tried and tried, and finally it took. And this joy and this blessing, and she got preeclampsia, and she was working from a hospital bed. They said, you just can't get out of the hospital bed. And so she'd work from there, answering emails to her congregation. And at 34 weeks, she delivered precious Penelope and held her in her arms. This dream fully realized, and yet so unexpected and particular and magical, and our heart filled with love. 5 days later, Penelope died of complications from an infection in her digestive system. And Jessica and her father and best friend laid her ashes to rest. Storge love will change Jessica forever. She'll never stop that kind of love. Storge love in the ancient Greeks was also directed towards one's country. And so I want to lift up those people who serve their country, our country, whether it's in the military or as a public leader, or these days as a physician, or as an epidemiologist, or a school teacher, or in their grocery stores. We now realize how important each of these jobs are for our country and our country folk to continue. I'll tell you this, it can pierce you deep. But don't you want a love so deep that it is worth sacrificing for? Eros. Eros is that romantic, passionate love named after the goddess of fertility. And these days, actually, Eros has a great reputation. We talk about that rush of falling in love, that sense of exhilaration of losing oneself and to the soul of another. We even talk about soulmates. But the ancient Greeks were like, hold on. They thought that Eros falling in love sense was something to be skeptical for. They thought it's irrational, it's dangerous, you lose control. And so, in their understanding, Eros is more Daniel Steele than Jane Austen. Now, I don't want you to think, though, that Eros is confined to the erotic alone. It also can be connected to mania. Some Greeks thought mania was its own form of love, though we don't translate it that way. So I'd like to say, think about those sports fans or celebrity stalkers or Romeo or Juliet or other teenage love-struck humans. The people who will invest so much of their time and attention into their cell phone instead of the people they live with. So Eros, this passionate, irrational draw to pour yourself into something, can lead to a kind of new life, can call you away from where you are. But I think it would be wise to stay tethered to a sensible friend who could extract you if necessary. Which leads us naturally to philia, which is the intimate, authentic friendship. These are the friends who help you make wise and true choices in your life. They are the ones in this platonic relationship who help you, even though there's nothing in the eros category. It's fully platonic, it's not sexual. It still remains emotionally intimate. These are the friends who see you through everything and anything, especially when the whole thing falls apart. Now, these types of friendships used to be, I think, more common than they are today. Anyone who studied the biography of Lincoln will know about Joshua Speed, one of his best friends. He actually became a roommate, or more accurately, a bedmate of Lincoln. And during this time of being together, they shared of their lives, their stories, their feelings, their fears. They'd share what pickup lines did not work and what ones seemed to work a little bit better. They talked about their hopes and dreams. It was Joshua Speed's friendship that helped get Lincoln through 2 bouts of serious suicidal depression. Bouts that could have cost him his marriage, his family, his presidency, and his life. So, your true friend, this philia love, not only helps get you through the worst of times, but sometimes they also help you make the wise and true choices in your life, so that way your life is less likely to fall apart. And so these friendships are built through time and loyalty, devotion, and a measure of shared lives. It's hard these days when we move for jobs or move to take care of parents or are busy with our work schedules, but these types of friendships were considered one of the most vital and necessary forms of love to thrive in life. Pragma, long-standing love. Those who are longly wed know that pragma is making compromises to help the relationship work out over time. And I'm going to talk more about this longly wed to our newlyweds next week, but I invite you to think about this pragma love. Psychoanalyst Eric Fromm said that we spend too much energy falling in love and need to learn more how to stand in love. And pragma is precisely about standing, or I'd prefer to say, grounding oneself in love, making an effort to give love rather than just receive it. With about a third of marriages in the US ending in divorce or separation within 10 years, we should think about how we can build pragma into our relationships. And the last form of love, agape love. Radical, sacred, selfless love. This is the love you extend to all people. C.S. Lewis, the Christian writer, referred to it as gift love, the highest form of Christian love. But Roman Kazarnik, founder of the Empathy Museum, points out that it appears in various world traditions, such as the concept of universal loving kindness in Theravada Buddhism. I think of as agape love as a reverence for another person's soul, awe at their humanity. Agape love is the love of beloved community. It is the love that shifts us not from just giving love to our relationships, but making love into a movement, as Adrienne Maree Brown was saying. Could we make increasing love our goal? It is certainly agape love that motivated Martin Luther King Jr. to his social action work. He wrote in Where Do We Go From Here, Chaos or Community, about a moment right after the 1965 march from Selma to Montgomery. If you need a refresher on your history, this was an important voting rights march. It was a symbolic funeral procession that had been blocked through violence and death for several days and was finally allowed to complete. And it was the major act or major action that led to both the Civil Rights Bill and the Voting Rights Bill, both of which are being undermined currently. But King writes about how he was in the airport in Montgomery trying to go home. And he was there, and there was a number of different flight delays, and so the thousands of demonstrators were there, and it was getting to be unusually crowded in the airport as they were in their various different waiting areas. And he looked across this crowd, just waiting and milling about, and he saw that there were demonstrators of all races and classes crowded together on benches and chairs and floors and leaning against walls, any place that a human body could relax against. And King described this experience, and I quote, "As I stood with them and saw white and Negro, nuns and priests, ministers and rabbis, labor organizers, lawyers, doctors, housemaids, and shop workers brimming with vitality and enjoying a rare comradeship, I knew I was seeing a microcosm of the mankind of the future in this moment of luminous and genuine brotherhood." King understood that you could sit side by side and have your hearts far apart. But in agape love, we do the work of justice to be side by side and have our hearts connected with one another. So, my dear ones, in 2022, I invite you to think about which form or practice of love you wish to grow in your life. Is it agape love, philia love, storge love, ludus love? How can we bring these practices and layers of love into our beloved community here at UUCA? May we work to be part of this wider movement of love. Amen.